Norway is a country of northern Europe that occupies the western half of the Scandinavian peninsula. Nearly half of the inhabitants of the country live in far south in the region around Oslo, the capital. About two-thirds of Norway is mountainous, and off its much indented coastal line lie, carved by deep glacial fjords, some 50,000 islands. The people of Norway have one of the highest standards of living in the world. Norway is yet another country with the scenic mountains and interesting culture. Still, there are many things that make this country shine above its neighboring countries. It's called the land of the midnight sun for a reason. Norway is divided into 19 counties called fylker. The king appoints a governor to each fylke. Each district also has a community council made up of elected officials. Members of the Norway's parliament, called the Storting, are elected every 4 years. Diplomatic relations between Indonesia and Norway date back to early 1950s, in which Norway was amongst the first countries to recognize Indonesia's independence, followed by establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries.
Well, stretched across the northern tip of Scandinavian peninsula in Europe, Norway may seem like such a faraway and distant destination from Indonesia. However, the nurtured and long-lasting relations between the two countries has proven the test of time, spanning across many sectors. And we are here at the Embassy of Norway to Indonesia and Timor-Leste. We'll be in conversation with Madam Ambassador herself to get to know her better, and more importantly, the latest scopes of cooperations between Indonesia and Norway. I'm Rahmat Idris. You are watching Ambassador Corner. Let's go in. We are here at the Embassy of Norway to Indonesia and Timor-Leste here in Jakarta, Indonesia. And it is my distinct honor to be sitting down in conversation with the ambassador herself, the ambassador of Norway to Indonesia and Timor-Leste, Her Excellency Rut Giverin. Madam Ambassador, thank you very much for making your time for TVRI World and for welcoming us in this beautiful space of the embassy of yours.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, we know exactly that. You've just returned a couple of days ago from Oslo, and thank you for squeezing us into your busy schedules. I guess you're recovering from the jet lag, but it is on a more serious note that it was such a significant visit on behalf of the embassy and also from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. What more can you tell us about the visit to Norse, also with our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Retno Marsudi?
Well, it was a wonderful visit. I think the minister herself would agree. Minister Marsudi is a great friend of Norway because she was also ambassador to Norway a little while ago. So it was really an occasion to mark the very strong and very comprehensive partnership we have with Indonesia. She spent almost 3 days there, which is quite unique, and we were really, really excited that she took so much time there with us. We had 1 day of the visit spent on bilateral issues, where we had the Joint Bilateral Commission meeting, which is a format where we talk about the totality of our bilateral relations, which covers a lot of sectors. And then the second day, Minister Marsudi was guest of honor at the Oslo Forum, which is also known as the Mediators Retreat, where people from various conflict areas and academics, philanthropists and from various organizations come together to discuss how we can work together to solve conflicts around the world and create peace. And Minister Marsudi was there on the opening panel, and also she talked a lot about the ASEAN presidency, of course.
Before we dive deeper into the forum itself, Madam Ambassador, I'd like to get a deeper insights on the note of cooperations between Indonesia and Norway. We know that we've enjoyed such long, nurtured, long-lasting relations between the two countries. But in recent times, what have been the most focused? What sectors have we covered so far in terms of bilateral relations between Indonesia and Norway?
Well, we have a very comprehensive and very special partnership with Indonesia. I would like to highlight three areas. One is we are both countries, well, very different countries, I must say.
Exactly.
Because Indonesia being such
and
a
so far away
so
too
far
from
away.
Indonesia.
But one thing that really unites us is our belief in cooperation, international cooperation, to solve the big issues of today. Whether it is conflicts, whether it is the threats now against international law, such as Russia's aggression in Ukraine. The need for more global cooperation is really important for both our countries. Indonesia has a very strong voice in the UN, as also a voice of the global south. And Norway has also a very fundamental belief in multilateralism and how we can work together to solve the big issues of today. The second part is how both countries have a very important focus on the challenge of climate change, which for us here in
Norway
Indonesia
has been leading in that sector, the fight against climate change.
Yes, I think we have in many ways, but we also have big challenges in Norway in our transition from a petroleum-based economy to having more renewable energy.
Green industry as well.
And green industry, which for us entails a big transformation also of our industries back home. But here in Indonesia, I think the most important and maybe the trademark of our cooperation is our very strong collaboration on climate and forests, where we are now supporting Indonesia in Indonesia's amazingly, world-recognized efforts to reduce deforestation. We have been impressed by Indonesia's efforts for many, many years, and we were so pleased that last year we entered into a new memorandum of understanding in support of Indonesia's Full Net Sink plan. And the efforts of Indonesia, the government of Indonesia, President Jokowi, Minister Nurbaya is really recognized all over the world, and we are very, very happy to support that. And then the third thing is that today we are facing big threats against international stability. There's geopolitical rivalries in Europe with Russia's war against Ukraine, but also here in the region you can feel the increased tension
regional
internationally.
tensions as well. That's right.
And I think what this visit meant for us is also a renewed commitment on behalf of Norway to listen to Indonesia, and for Indonesia also to be a strong voice here in the region, but also globally, to help solve these issues, to defend international law, territorial integrity, and basically, work together with us and with other international partners to make the world a safer place.
Wow, those have been three crucial matters that we are truly grateful to have the cooperations with the Norwegian government. Eye-opening and illuminating to hear your take, your insights on this matter. And in the next part of our conversation, we'd like to get to know you a little better. So stay with us right here on Ambassador Corner. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ambassador Corner here on TVRI World. We are still here sitting down in conversation with the Ambassador of Norway to Indonesia and Timor-Leste, Her Excellency Rut Giverin. And for this particular part of the conversation, Madam Ambassador would like to get to know you better. Most importantly, we'll begin with your experience here in the country. We know that you've been in Indonesia a little over 2 years. How has the experience here in Indonesia been for you? What are the highlights?
Well, I am so enjoying my time here.
Good to hear that.
I was actually posted to Indonesia once before, from 2001 till 2004. So it was my first posting as a diplomat, and obviously very exciting and a bit sort of overwhelming, I guess, in many ways.
I would believe so.
I also had very young children at the time. So my youngest son was born in Indonesia at the...
Oh, he was?
Yeah, in 2003.
But he's not an Indonesian citizen, is he?
No, but it says in his passport, you know,
that he was
place
born?
of birth, Jakarta, Indonesia.
I see, that's
so
nice.
he was born at the Rumah Sakit Medistra.
Oh, right.
In 2003. But anyway.
So how long was that, the tenure for the first time?
The first time was for 3 years.
For 3 years?
Yeah.
Right.
But because I had very young children, of course, it is a nice place to have young children, but it kind of limited my opportunity a bit to travel.
That's right.
So now that I'm back,
and they're all grown up, we believe.
Yeah, they're all grown up.
Yeah.
So now my husband and I really are taking this opportunity to discover as much as we can of this beautiful country. So we started off 2 years ago with very high ambitions and all the places we wanted to see, and we're doing quite well, I must say. So we're working on the basis of a spreadsheet where we have basically put down all the nice places.
All the checklists and things in the buckets that you must do well in the country.
Exactly.
But before we delve deeper into that, Madam Ambassador, I would like to get your backgrounds a little bit to get to know your diplomacy journey before here in Indonesia. You mentioned a little bit your brief 3-year experience in the country, but prior to the task or the assignment of being an ambassador in Indonesia, how was the journey of diplomacy around the world for you on behalf of Norwegian government?
Well, I joined the diplomatic service in 1998, which is now 25 years ago, which is a long time. Yeah. So all my adult life I've spent working for the Foreign Service, which is a job I very much enjoy. So my first posting was here in Indonesia, and then after Indonesia I went to London because my husband is British and he was a British diplomat at the time, so we were very excited to go to London.
Wow.
So we spent a couple of years there. Then I moved back to Oslo and worked in the section for peace and reconciliation. So I did quite a lot of work on conflict, and you know, Norway has a strong role as being very much engaged in peace and reconciliation efforts around the world. So after that, I went to a real conflict area, which was Sudan. So I was in Khartoum,
which is currently in turmoil.
Which
if we
is
may add to that,
really upsetting, and it's such a disaster, and we are very concerned about the developments there now. But when I was there from 2008 till 2011, it was actually a quite stable time in Khartoum, and we had a wonderful time. It's also a beautiful country. You know, people get this impression that it is a conflict zone, which it is now, but at the time it was a great place to be, and I really hope that peace will come back to Sudan.
I believe that you've gone through all of the trials and tribulations of becoming a diplomat in different parts of the globe. That's just amazing. So being posted here in Indonesia, what were some of the most anticipated challenges that you have to get yourself geared up before diving into Indonesia and overall in the region of South Asia? Because also you represent Timor-Leste, not only our country.
Yeah. I think I knew what to expect, in the sense that for me coming back to Indonesia, I wouldn't say it's like coming home, but almost.
It's not like, because you've been here before, that's right.
Yeah, so to be honest, I think things are actually much easier here now than 20 years ago. The traffic is still pretty bad, but I think it was worse. I feel that it was worse a while ago. I think the government has made great improvements now in public transport. There is the infrastructure is much better here now, so To be honest, I haven't really had that kind of feeling that I had to face many challenges here.
Thank you very much for
the
saying
people
that.
are still the most wonderful people.
Thank
so,
you. It is a delight to hear that.
Yeah.
Go back to what we've discussed at the early part of our conversations. All the things in the bucket list that you must do while being here in the countries. We have a vast and diverse options and destinations to visit. What are some of your favorites that you've visited to and places that you've long dreamed of visiting here in the country?
Well, I've had the opportunity to discover so many highlights already. Just to mention a few, I went on a fantastic visit to Raja Ampat in
Most
February
of us have never
this year.
been there. It's so far away.
And
from the
I'm a very keen diver, so I love diving.
You
so
are.
Indonesia is a
amazing.
paradise for divers. So I've been to Raja Ampat and I've been to the Banda Islands, and recently I went to Derawan Island, just outside Kalimantan. So I've been to some really spectacular diving places, and I'm planning to go to Bunak in October. So diving is really high on my list.
As a matter of fact, you inspire us locals to explore more of our country.
But also, I enjoy going out really in the field. I am very fortunate that I can go on to visit some of the many projects that we support here. Yeah. So I've been around to, well, I was in West Papua, also visiting some of the very important work we're doing there. But
Did
also,
you get to elaborate and mention briefly any of them?
Yeah, a lot of it is on creating new economic livelihoods for people who live from the forest. Indonesia is making enormous efforts in this regard. I also want to mention I went to Jambi last year to see another project to help smallholder farmers getting more out of their plots of land where they are cultivating palm oil. So for us, supporting Indonesia's effort to have sustainable palm oil is also very important. And it's great to be out there in the field and see the efforts that are being made by the government in areas like related to climate and forest, for example.
Thank you for being there for us as well. Just one last thing before we conclude this particular part of our conversations. Let's dive right into the culinary of Indonesia. We hear that you've taken a liking to some of the delicacies of our country. Would you care to tell us more about that?
Well, I love all kinds of Indonesian food, and I really missed it. I was in Norway last week, and I kind of miss the availability of just really exciting and tasty food that you can find everywhere here. And
what's some of your favorites?
Well, I honestly, some of the best food I've had has been in very local places. I love just street food as well that I can find, you know, when I travel around. And some of the, well, I love all the Indonesian favorites like satay and rendang and all the local
and all
varieties.
The spices suit you
and
very
all the
well.
Spices,
They're okay with those.
Yeah, I'm pretty, it depends a bit though. Yeah.
So you have to
not
adjust
too
a little
spicy.
bit, not too spicy.
Yeah.
But the overall seasonings is fine.
Exactly. But I think just because I love to travel and I love diving, I'm very lucky to spend quite a bit of time traveling to the coastal areas of Indonesia, and some of the very best food I think I've had has been ikan bakar, like
grilled fish.
I remember in Ambon, there is a
the
fantastic place where they have the best fish I think I've ever tasted in my life.
Well, I can only hope that you would be so kind to spread the good words of our country.
I will, yeah.
Whenever you get in touch with your local Norwegians or within the international communities. And we have to conclude this particular part. In the next part of our conversation, Madam Ambassador, would like to learn more about your beautiful, very distant place I've never been, Norway. A little bit more on that later on. So stay with us right here on Ambassador Corner. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ambassador Corner here on TVRI World. We've arrived in the final segment of our conversation. Time flies when you're having fun and we're having a good time. Still with the Ambassador of Norway to Indonesia and Timor-Leste, Her Excellency Rut Giverin. Madam Ambassador, for this particular part, we want to know more about Norway. It's so far away, as we mentioned, from Indonesia. It's like a fantasy to even be able to go there, to imagine, but we do have something we can visit. Tell us more about Norway. As we hear, it's one of the happiest countries in the world. It's one of the most prosperous nations in the Scandinavian northern part of the peninsula. What more can you tell us about the country?
Well, I think maybe you summed it up. It's we're quite a happy place, happy country. It's a very small country in terms of population, and can you imagine we're only just about 5 million people.
Goodness,
so I think one of the things that strikes you is how empty parts of the country is, but we have such natural beauty. I mean, we were talking about Indonesia, but Norway also has the fjords and the mountains. And Norwegians are very outdoorsy people. We love spending time outdoors. So a lot of Norwegians would just always go for a walk, or so we like to spend time outdoors. But then again, we are also a country that shares some of the same challenges as Indonesia does. We are in the middle of an energy transition. We have had a lot of economic wealth coming from the petroleum industry, and this has to change. So we're in the middle of a sort of industrial transformation where we're trying to build up our industries, our renewable industries. So this is, of course, creating some new challenges for us, but we're working very hard on that. But also I think we have amazing nature, amazing food, and
that's right.
And I have to mention the seafood, because I think the seafood from Norway is the world's best. And I know this because I've tried seafood from many places.
You come from there. I also have a colleague back in Norway who, on a regular basis, shares with me just her activities and beautiful things to see and to do in Norway. And one of the things that comes to mind when you mention the word Norway, for me personally, is Vikings and the traces of civilizations that comes along with it. And as you mentioned, the seafood, the oceans, also a major attraction, a major beauty in Norway, which leads me to my next question to you, Madam Ambassador. That ocean has also been one of the main focuses for the Norwegian government in terms of keeping our ocean intact.
Absolutely. Norway is very much engaged on the ocean agenda globally. Our Prime Minister a few years ago established a so-called high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy. And this has really been a priority for Norway since I believe 2018 or so. President Jokowi is also on the panel together with our Prime Minister. So this is an area where we are working also very closely with Indonesia to not just protect the ocean, which we have to do, but also to use the resources from the ocean in a sustainable way. And we are currently having many projects of cooperation with Indonesia in the ocean area. We're working on ocean accounts, for example, to basically try and have accounts of the resources we have in the ocean. This is an area where Norway is also just starting up, so we are working together in an equal partnership to try and find new instruments and new ways of having a proper overview of all the resources we have in the ocean, because we need to make sure that they can continue for a very long time, that we don't overfish, and that we, work to avoid illegal fishing, etc.
And further damage to the ecosystem of the ocean itself, because just last week we celebrated the World Ocean Day. One of the main concerns is keeping the coral reefs. That's been 50% damage, and all of these damaging activities, illegal fishing, as you mentioned as well.
Exactly, so and plastic waste as well.
Plastic waste
is a big area that
polluted ocean as well. All right, I have here on my note that we both share a semblance of similarities in terms of being big fans of football, Norwegians and Indonesians. And I have it on my notes, some of the most notorious footballers from Norway: Erling Haaland from Manchester City, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Manchester United. I hope I pronounced the names correctly. And John Arne Riise in Liverpool. What more can you tell us about this, Madam Ambassador?
Well, I can first of all tell you that these names, especially Erling Haaland, is known all over Indonesia, because I can travel to the most far away places in Indonesia, and I will get into a taxi and they would ask me where I'm coming from. I say Norway, and they say, Erling Haaland.
Erling Haaland.
So there's no doubt that Erling Haaland is maybe one of the world's most famous football players, and he's like a Norwegian Viking, right?
He is. Do you see that someday we could have I don't know, like FIFA can arrange a friendly match between Norwegian national teams and ours? That would be great.
I also get, like, on my social media accounts, there's always comments saying, "Oh, Ibu, please, can you invite Erling Haaland to come to Indonesia?"
He would be a celebrity.
I will do my best. I'm sure he would. Yeah.
Well, we almost come to the end of our conversation, Madam Ambassador. And at the to cap off our conversations, I'd like to touch on the Norwegian cuisine. So far, the whole entire world has been only familiar with the world waffle that comes from Belgium, and that is Belgian waffle. But we hear that there is a delicacy called Norwegian waffle.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, they're coming right now, these waffles. Thank you, terima kasih.
Yeah.
Wow, look at this. And they're also heart-shaped. Look at them.
Yeah, they make it into a special machine where we make them into hearts.
So what's special about Norwegian waffle, Madam Ambassador?
I think the Belgian waffles are usually square and a bit more crunchy, a bit more heavy. These are a little softer. But the taste is more or less the same.
Okay. So what are the occasions where Norwegian waffles are usually served? In the households in Norway, or here during our meetings?
Yeah, I think sometimes we serve them at meetings. I think a lot of embassies around the world, Norwegian embassies, have Waffle Friday, or they serve waffles when they have special guests, etc. But we also have them, maybe in our cabins, up in the mountains,
okay.
skiing,
So
etc.
they're very easy to bring around, easy to make as well.
Easy to make.
And such a delicacy. I can't wait to have a taste. But we do have a few more minutes. Besides waffle, Madam Ambassador, what other delicacies would you like to introduce from Norway to our viewers internationally?
Well, it will have to be Norwegian salmon, I think.
The salmon.
Because we are very lucky now. We are now seeing a very big increase in the import of salmon to Indonesia. And Indonesians love salmon. I've seen that, if you serve salmon on a buffet, it disappears very quickly. It's for sashimi.
You see something orange on the buffet and that's it. So
exactly.
So go for that first.
We're working very hard with our exporters and importers here in Indonesia now to have more Norwegian salmon coming into Indonesia, but also different other kinds of seafood. So I think the Norwegian seafood is the best probably in the world.
All right, so as our time comes to an end, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude, Madam Ambassador, for your time, for your insights, and telling us all these beautiful stories about your country. Again, I'd like to thank the Ambassador of Norway to Indonesia and Timor-Leste, Her Excellency, Madam Rut Giverin. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the waffles.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
And that's it for Ambassador Conor. I'm Rahmat Idris. Thanks for watching. It's waffle time. Let's dig in. How do I?
You take one and you can use...